Hello, Star Trek fans. Welcome to ReBinge It. This is the ReBinge Star Trek Voyager podcast. My name is Kim.
And my name is James.
And we are rebinging Star Trek Voyager from the beginning, one episode at a time. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are on Season 2, Episode 2, Initiations. This episode aired September 4th, 1995. Before we talk about this one, anything to say about last week's episode, the one with Amelia Earhart?
No, it was perfect. Even if the episode was a little loaded with mythology and conspiracy theories, and until the last, 10 minutes was just silly.
Yeah, we talked about that for so long, and I just didn't like what they focused on. I just thought they really wasted their time with the Amelia Earhart stuff, and they could have shown us anything having to do with the rest of the planet, and we just never did it. So,
wow, what amazing cities, if only we'd seen them.
Gosh, yeah.
What an oddball episode.
Well, I think I gave that one a thumbs up, barely, but I went back and forth. And even during the week, I was like, was that a thumbs up? Is it a neutral? I don't know. It's,
I have gone back and revised ratings before.
Yeah, I'll just leave it. We should get started. You have the notes this week.
Yes, I do. We open with Chakotay recording a log, and it's stardate 49005.3. Any comment on that, Kim?
Why do you write that down?
He's out in a shuttlecraft, performing a ritual as it's the anniversary of his father's death, and he wanted to do this alone. And we cut to a Kazon vessel who are watching the shuttle and very crabby, saying they'll teach them a lesson about displaying their markings in our space. One of the Kazon says he'll go, but the first guy tells him Kar should go, and we learn this will be Kar's first mission. He'll apparently get to earn his name and be called Ogla. I assume only if he's successful.
Well, maybe they would give him the name anyway, if he died in battle or whatever.
That is something that can happen. Back on the shuttle, Chakotay is interrupted by phaser fire, and we cut to an effect shot of a really cool-looking Kazon ship shooting at the shuttle. This was actually pretty good. The effects stand up really well, even as it's NTSC. Chakotay hails the ship and tries talking his way out. A very Federation approach, telling the young Kazon that he'll just leave. But the Kazon just tells him, no one who violates their space leaves. And finally saying, I am your executioner. And into the opening credits.
Did you already know at this point whose voice that was?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because this is one of those episodes, I remembered it, and I remembered it like almost perfectly. I think because it was kind of a big deal that Aron Eisenberg was going to be in this episode. So seeing him in the opening credits, it was like, hey, it's Nog. It's Nog who's gone evil. Evil-er, I guess, as he was a Ferengi.
Well, or early DS9 Nog, who was also a bit petulant.
That's true.
So we're just going to skip over Chakotay and his Akuchi Moya.
Yeah, we will never mention that.
Okay. Fair enough.
Back to the show, and Chakotay is still trying to resolve this by talking. But he does warn Nog that he will return fire. And we get both a great and an oddball space battle here where Chakotay just does like a loop and gets behind Kar's ship and takes out the engine core in one shot, of course. We see the burning ship and the engine core is critical, and with only seconds left, Chakotay beams over the young Kazon pilot just before it explodes. And we get quite a nice little space effect here. Chakotay tries hailing Voyager, but of course, long-range comms was damaged. Sarcastically, he turns to the unconscious Kazon and says, welcome aboard.
Unconscious and face down, so you don't see Nog's face just yet.
Yes. On Voyager, Neelix is talking with Janeway, and it sounds like he's actually been helpful, and Janeway lists some of the things that he's actually been up to, although they don't bring up the number of people he's given food poisoning by his poor hygiene standards.
Or how he almost killed all of them with his cheese a couple weeks ago.
Hopefully they put air filters in the kitchen now.
I assume he can be quite helpful with some of the others. He's just got an annoying personality for Janeway and is sort of in her face all the time. And I can see how that would be obnoxious.
Right.
At the same time, he's almost giving her and her first officer a break from having to do a lot of the real sort of hands-on stuff with the personnel because he's the one who's doing it. So
that is true. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's good and bad, I guess.
He's providing a support role that's important and freeing time for Chakotay and Janeway to attend to other duties.
Right.
Neelix wants
like a Kuchimoya. By the way, this is Neelix's worst outfit. It's like grayish tan. It's so ugly.
Well, Neelix is kind of buttering Janeway up, and she just says, yes, while doing a bit of a Janeway maneuver there, too.
Yeah, she does have a little bit of an eye roll. Not a classic one, but...
And it all comes down to he's just disappointed he wasn't invited to the holodeck defense simulations. And Janeway promises him that he'll be invited to future ones.
Why does he want to be part of the defense simulator games? I mean, he was a conscientious objector.
I think because he just wants to be included.
Which is why he's annoying. It's like, are you a child? No.
Yes, he is very childlike.
Yeah.
Well, before Neelix can say much more, Janeway is called to the bridge, and we learn Chakotay was not at the rendezvous point, and they've not heard from him in 6 hours. Surprisingly, he filed a flight plan. That bit surprised me, and Janeway orders to plot course for Chakotay's last known coordinates.
I like how she says, did you try hailing him? Like, duh.
Well, Harry...
Of course we tried hailing him.
Harry is young, you might have forgotten that one.
I guess.
A little bit of overanalysis here. Don't you think shuttles should have some sort of emergency transmit function on them that soon as they get hit with phaser fire, they immediately transmit back to Voyager under attack?
Yeah, that would totally make sense. And also almost like a homing signal, right? When there's any kind of trouble. So
at least they get the point in space where they were attacked, even if the first shots from the Kazon managed to damage the long-range comms. Back to the shuttle, and Nog, also known as Car, is coming round, and he's been tied up. The kid is very combative, and Chakotay says he'll hand him over to the Kazons when they get back to Voyager. The kid doesn't seem happy about this, saying, "You should have let me die." Chakotay then puts him out of the airlock, saying, "Well, it's what he wanted."
It is hard to take him seriously as a different character because he sounds just like Nog.
Yes.
Behaves like Nog.
Yes. There's a lot of parallels in these two characters.
Yeah.
Their conversation is now interrupted by an approaching Kazon vessel, and it's a big one. Chakotay hails them, telling them that he has Car aboard, and Car seems really uncomfortable about this. He is not happy. There's no response except the Kazon engages a tractor beam on the shuttle. The computer reports they don't have enough engine power to break free, and shockingly, Kaz tells Chakotay, "Kill me." A confused Chakotay asks, "Why are you so eager for me to kill you?" Car just looks at the Kazon ship and says, "There are worse things than being killed by your enemy." And we get a shot of the shuttle being tracted towards the Kazon ship. That's actually a kind of cool looking ship. It's a little bit weird looking, but it gives a good sense of scale of how big the Kazon ships are.
Yeah, that's true. I think this is the scene where Chakotay says he's got this boy on board and he's about 13.
Yeah.
And, of course, I immediately looked up how old Aron Eisenberg was at the time, and he's almost 30. He's like 26 or 27. I guess he
can play younger roles.
Yeah. He had the benefit of always looking young.
Yeah.
Just maybe because of his size, but he was not 13. I would say, though, his makeup is really good. Yes.
I think it's fair to say all the Kazon in this episode, the makeup really is good.
No, I don't agree with all of them.
Really?
The guy who's the leader.
Rizak.
Yeah. He is so crazily sunburned. And also, his hair is so wild. I think this is always my problem with the Kazon, is he looks more ridiculous than menacing.
Really?
And even his behavior in the episode, he's kind of goofy. There's a couple of times where you're like, what? Why did he read the line that way?
The Kazon have now taken Chakotay prisoner, and they've put Car in the same holding area as him too. After a bit of posturing, Car finally demands to see Razik. In this holding area, Car explains to Chakotay, showing him trophies from battles of how the Kazon earn their name from victories. So it appears the Kazon earn their name by killing innocent people.
Yeah, it does seem that way.
Although Car's brother did earn his name dying in battle, so I guess that's a yay win there.
This scene really reminded me of Picard. I think it's season 2 at the beginning when it all changes to like a different path from history. And there's a room of trophies like this. I think it's in Picard's house, right?
Yeah, the head's room.
Yeah.
Well, K tells Chakotay that now he will never earn his name in life or death, and mockingly tells Chakotay, I have you to thank for that.
You're welcome, is what Chakotay should have said.
Overanalysis time. We have to talk about you should not be letting the Kazon capture your shuttle. Isn't that a little bit concerning?
Mm-hmm.
Shouldn't he have set the self-destruct? You could literally change the balance of power in the sector. They're desperate for high tech and for replicators and anything else the shuttle might have. And you let it fall into their hands?
Yeah, I don't think Chakotay did anything right up till this point.
Yeah.
At the same time, why did they let him go out into a part of space they haven't charted? They don't know anything about it. I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous. And then they don't keep their eye on him. You know what I mean? The whole thing is crazy.
On Voyager, they've arrived at Chakotay's last coordinates and find a debris field. Tuvok finds a non-Federation ion trail, and they set off to follow that. On the Kazon ship, the big guy from the beginning, who must be Razik, enters, and K tries making excuses for how he failed. But Razik tells him, an Ogler has no time for excuses. Razik then tells him, I forgive you. Hold that in your heart. And then hugs him and kisses K. K just starts crying. So I guess this is the Kazon version of the kiss of death, kind of literally.
I guess that's what that's supposed to mean.
Yeah.
I watched it twice, and both times I just thought, this guy does not scare me. He's so weird. I didn't get that.
Yeah.
Really, until you actually read it back, and then I was like, oh.
Yeah. Don't you think that kind of makes him all the more scarier that he doesn't seem this villainous?
Not to me. I just thought he was strange and sunburned.
Yeah. Razik then asks Chakotay why he saved K's life, describing it as, it's an inefficient method of war.
He's not wrong.
Chakotay tells him they're not at war, and if he'd seen a map of their space, they'd have avoided it. Razik tells him that their territorial claims change every day. So, these guys really are just complete jerks.
Yeah.
I think Voyager just needs to start icing Kazon ships whenever they see them. They're just the scourge.
I mean, why not at this point?
It sounds like really they just want to fight and kill anyone they can come across.
Mm-hmm.
Razik tells Chakotay, who he calls Federation, that he is a threat to them. The Kazon fought long and hard for their independence from uniforms, just like Chakotay. He leaves, telling the guards to get him something to eat. His execution is tonight. I thought it was interesting that we got a little bit more background on the Kazon, because he says to Chakotay at one point, your laws are not welcome here. And it makes me wonder if the real problem here is that the Kazon want to do anything they like. Free-ranging pirates or reavers, and anything that interrupts their trail of destruction is a threat.
I do believe that's what they're trying to build up with these aliens, with Kazon.
On Voyager, B'Elanna has examined the debris field and determined it's not a shuttle, but a Kazon ship. Cut back to the Kazon ship, and a group of Kazon children are being introduced to Chakotay. But it turns out, really, this is a warning to them, as Razik arrives with K, telling the kids that K failed and will not earn his name in life or death. He holds out his phaser, asking, who is willing to kill the human? And all three of the little kids start grabbing for it. So they're bloodthirsty little tykes as well.
Yeah, and they do this when Chakotay is trying to say, I'm just a gentle human.
I'm not your enemy. And
then the Kazon gives them the opportunity to take the phaser just to make the point that you can talk all you want.
Right.
Yeah.
Razik offers the phaser to Chakotay, telling him, kill K, and he'll let him go. Razik tells the kids it's to teach them that there are no second chances in battle, and that's why K must die. Razik offers the phaser again to Chakotay, and Chakotay just drops it. But as he picks it up, he shoulder charges Razik, knocking him to the ground and then holding the phaser to his neck. Good one, Chakotay. It makes me think the Kazon are just so full of bluster that you could do that kind of thing to them. They think they're the badasses in all situations.
Well, I think this is my problem with the Kazon.
Yeah.
You're supposed to believe somehow that they can be a menace in space.
Yeah.
Yet they don't even really have their own hierarchy figured out.
Yep.
They don't make good decisions. So
No.
They seem like really low-rent cavemen type versions of Klingons.
Okay, that's exactly my take on them.
Yeah.
But these guys just seem like a disorganized group of pirates with advanced technology that they don't necessarily really understand.
Exactly.
Just waging war on anyone they come across.
Yeah, so are we supposed to look at them as a Klingon-like race, or are we supposed to look at them as just pirates? I think they're probably scarier in this context, or more of a menacing alien if we think of them as pirates, because they don't work together.
Right.
They're all these different sects.
And the sects keep on splitting and combining.
Right.
We learn that later as well.
I'm not sure why we didn't make them a little bit more advanced.
Yeah.
If they were going to be the big bad, they needed to be a bit more advanced because it's hard to take them seriously. And then they have things like this where he just hands the phaser over. Chakotay gets away from this with virtually no effort whatsoever.
Right.
What were they trying to do? Just make them like a nuisance and not make them the big bad? Or was this their plan that these pirates were going to be the big bad? And then ultimately it was like, oh, well, they're not really that scary. We better get somebody else. I don't understand the Kazon.
You hit the nail on the head. They ended up being more like a nuisance.
Yeah.
That's where they kind of fell down.
That happened a bit on TNG, too, when they introduced the Ferengi. I think they thought, too, that was going to be a little bit more scary, and they just turned out to be almost clowns. Maybe on paper they seemed better or more interesting. Maybe the same is true with Kazon. It's like, oh, these guys are going to be super scary. They're not. You know what I mean? Once they got it on the screen, they're like, oh, well, that doesn't work. I also have this really dark thought that the red skin that they've put on the Kazon is like a callback to the terrible stereotypes of those old cowboy movies.
Oh, wow. That's really dark. That would be a little bit of a problem if you look at it
this
like
might really be why I don't like the Kazon.
Yeah.
It's like, this isn't the Wild West. They're supposed to be aliens.
Well,
we're going to get letters about this, aren't we? Because I do not like the Kazon. Somebody loves them.
I always saw them as sort of like low-rent Klingons that never really lived up to anything.
Yeah. Low-rent Klingon is a good description, and I think pirate is also a good description. They're not great pirates. They're not like the pirates we had in the Mirrorverse in DS9.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
I suppose to some degree we could look at it like these are just early Klingons. They could evolve into something like that, but for now they're not unified. And we talked about that quite a bit in some of the early Klingon stories. There was this idea that they had to unify. Forget what the word was that Worf would always say, but they had to come together. And that was something in Discovery, too, before they really became a stronger empire. Yeah. So maybe that's what they're trying to say. Like, these are almost a barbarian version, just a less evolved version of the Klingons, and that eventually they could build towards that. And it might be even worse if they accidentally got Voyager technology, then they could evolve out of order, and it could be bad for the whole quadrant.
Back to the show, and Chakotay orders Razik to return his shuttle. Chakotay asks Kar if he wants to come too, and Halise, who's like the second in command, says he'd rather die than leave with you. But spoken too soon, as Kar kicks Halise in the leg, and as he stumbles, takes his phaser. Razik tells Kar he won't earn his name running with Federation, but Kar just says, it's a chance I'm willing to take. As they leave, Kar tells Chakotay he'll disable the weapons system so they can escape. Did you notice in the background, there was like a pile of laundry with a skull on top?
No, I did not notice that.
Oh, I went back and watched it a couple of times. I was laughing.
That is funny. No, I did not notice that.
We cut to the shuttle fleeing the Kazon ship, and again, we see it's pretty big. They're under fire, and Chakotay is about to warp, but Kar tells him the big ships are clumsy at low speed, so they should try to outmaneuver them. Kar offers the shield frequencies so they can fight back, but Chakotay tells him he'd like to get out of this without killing or be killed. And I think we get the line of the episode here, where a shocked Kar says, you'd rather die in your sleep, a wrinkly old man? And Chakotay just replies, sounds about right.
Yeah. Yes, thank you very much.
Nothing's helping as they're just getting plastered, and we go to an FX shot of the damaged shuttle spiraling towards the moon as Chakotay tries to initiate a transport. Back to Voyager, and they found more debris. This time, it is parts of Chakotay's ship, into a very dramatic ad break.
Why did we have to beam parts of the shuttle onto the ship to learn that it was Chakotay's shuttle? Because I'm quite sure we have scanned debris in space before and gotten that answer.
To make it more dramatic so B'Elanna could, sift through it.
To get B'Elanna something to do. She still could have done it. She could have been the one who did the scan. Is this the first shuttle we've lost?
I think this is the first shuttle we've lost, yes.
But we also gained one when Jetrel died.
Oh, yeah. Well,
And maybe we've got that shuttle replicator that they had on Prodigy. We just don't
that
talk
was so
about
cool.
Because it's not exciting.
Yeah.
We couldn't really show it.
Yeah.
We didn't have the effects.
They'll just keep on mentioning it's in a cargo bay somewhere.
I was really surprised that Tuvok at that moment didn't come into Downer Tuvok and just say, he's probably dead.
The logical conclusion here is that Chakotay is dead.
Yep.
I get to be first officer.
Let's choose a new first officer. That would have been funny.
On some rocks in Southern California, Kar and Chakotay are waking up from beaming down. Chakotay calls their escape a battle, which really upsets Kar, who says, "It wasn't a battle. We didn't even shoot back." And saying, "And now I'm stranded here with you."
Oy, why did you come along if you're just going to complain?
Eisenberg actually put some real feeling into that. You really got a sense of his disgust when he said it. Chakotay starts heading off, but Kar stops him, showing how he was about to walk into a booby trap. Kar explains that this moon is a training ground for the Kazon, and there are proton beams hidden everywhere, along with biomagnetic traps and disruptor snares. Kar had actually been there a year before training.
And don't forget snakes.
Oh, there'll definitely be snakes.
Absolutely.
Kar is actually having a little bit more confidence now, telling Chakotay that he's in his territory. If he wants to live to be that wrinkly old man, he'll have to do as he says. I like the way Kar then just sort of marches ahead. There was a few little touches from Eisenberg, which I thought really made the character kind of work. And this was one of he's in his element here. He knows what he's doing. It's like, okay, I'm in charge now.
Right.
Some speculation here. I wonder if Chakotay is the best person for this situation, because he must have had some experience in dealing with the Marquis, who I would imagine are very similar in Kar in terms of attitude. They want to be in battle. They want to do something glorious against the Cardassians. So I would think he would be quite well equipped to deal with someone like this.
Maybe he could punch him in the face like he did with the guy at the end of season 1.
Oh, that's only a disciplinary matter.
Oh, okay.
I mean, in terms of being able to actually relate to this kid, to try and talk to him.
Yeah, I don't think Tuvok would have handled this in quite the same way.
Yeah. On Voyager, the Doctor is informing Janeway there are no signs of human remains in the debris, meaning Chakotay is most likely still alive. Tuvok has determined that the shuttle was heading for a moon, and B'Elanna has detected booby traps all over the surface, and Kes explains how probably it's a Kazon training site. Neelix points out, for the Kazon, live ammunition is a very effective teaching tool. Janeway is working on the assumption that Chakotay made it to the surface and is immediately ready to beam down. Of course.
Yes, she is.
There's a great bit where Tuvok points out that because of radiothermic interference, they can't communicate from the surface with the ship.
There's always something.
And B'Elanna will take a few hours to work around it. But this doesn't even slow Janeway down, who says, "Nope, don't want to wait, we're heading down."
Can I take a gun? I'm in.
On the surface of the moon, Chakotay has managed to find a cave, and I'm afraid these are Deep Space Nine quality caves.
Yeah, not too great. Single surface, single color.
Yes.
Fake rocks. Yeah. Not even any dripping water like we had in the last cave.
I know, right. Chakotay is sending out a homing signal, and there's some more banter with Kar, who suggests killing Chakotay and delivering his technology to the Kazon. Then they'd have to give him his name. Chakotay isn't really taking any of this seriously and just says, "You just won't give up, will you?" The cave scene, I thought, is actually quite good. I mean, it spells out the huge cultural divide between Kar and Chakotay, because Kar asks him if he had to earn his name, which he didn't, and Kar just tells him, well, then your name means nothing. Chakotay has to explain how the uniform is like his name. He had to work for that and earn it. And Kar just doesn't seem to get it, just doesn't seem to get the idea of it.
I did think this is maybe the best part of the episode, that conversation.
Yeah.
And Chakotay trying to get him to see that he earned his uniform and that his name was an honor that he was given.
It was a gift.
By his family.
Right.
But from here, I think it goes a bit funny when Chakotay takes his nap.
We also see that the Kazon seem to conflate territory with power. And that's what's important to them, how much space they control. Well, it's nighttime and everyone's asleep, but Kar, who's still awake, takes the tricorder and then holds a phaser on the sleeping Chakotay, and he tries to shoot, but he just can't do it, throwing the phaser away and putting back the tricorder. He does seem a little conflicted here.
I don't know. Was this really a good idea for Chakotay to just leave himself exposed like that and just leave the technology out? Or was he actually awake and just seeing what would happen? Because the kid could have shot him.
That's a good point. There's an indication later that Chakotay did know what he was up to.
Yeah, but even knowing what the kid was up to, he wasn't safe.
That's true.
Not as if he could have prevented it. He had the phaser pointed right at him.
Yeah.
Unless he had disabled the kid's phaser. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know that.
Yeah, I guess it is possible.
It was a huge risk for Chakotay. On Voyager, Neelix is trying out the captain's chair as she left him behind to negotiate with the Kazon. And sure enough, Jal Razik turns up. Tom takes the call, and Razik spins a story that they killed Chakotay because he'd kidnapped a young man. Razik tells him to leave immediately. And here, Neelix pipes up, having, I think, some understanding of the Kazon and the sector, saying, it's unusual for a Kazon Mage to allow a trespasser to leave his space unharmed. Neelix actually seems to kind of mock him, saying, what would the other Kazon think of the new merciful attitude of the Ogler? And he says it really sarcastically. This was good because it did seem to show that Neelix had some understanding of how to negotiate with the Kazon.
Yeah.
The sort of thing you could say to them, which maybe the Federation wouldn't take that approach.
No. And definitely Tom was being quite cautious.
Yes.
Yeah, Neelix showed he actually knew something here, but at the same time, he did sit in the captain's chair, and that was not appropriate. And Tom should have told him, get out of that chair.
Well, Neelix has figured out that the Ogler won't start a fight, as it'll alert the other Kazon sects to their secret training base on the moon. The Kazon just cuts comms and looks to be heading to the surface. B'Elanna still can't get comms working, and Voyager can't follow as the moon's surface won't support a landing. So, no landing effects this week.
We already did that last week. We can't be doing that every week.
Back to Chakotay's cave. It's morning, and he lets Ka know that he knew what he was up to, saying, do you think I'd get much sleep around a Kazon warrior who's threatened to kill me? Chakotay asks why he didn't go through with it, asking, has he figured out he's not his enemy, but his friend? Ka responds, if you are my friend, then you're my only one.
At this point, that's probably true.
Ka explains, if he leaves and runs into other Kazon sects, they would regard him as an outcast, cutting off one finger and sending him away. These people are the worst.
Yeah.
On the surface, Janeway and Tuvok, and a guy I think is a male model from a clothing line, run into a group of Kazon who tell them they're there to help, having heard of their missing crewman. Which is interesting because one of them is Razak, spinning a story, and the Kazon offer to guide them through the traps. And amazingly, Janeway agrees. Back in the cave, and Ka tells a story of the other uniforms, the ones that the Kazon fought. They were called the Trabe, and both came from the same homeworld, but the Trabe shared nothing with the Kazon, eventually resulting in a revolt, and the Kazon taking everything from them. And this happened 26 years earlier. So these guys really are cavemen with VCRs.
Yeah, and the Federation probably, at least Voyager, probably really annoys them because they also don't want to give them anything.
Right, and if their society is based on just killing and taking things, then yeah. The tricorder starts beeping, and Chakotay says there are people coming, Kazon and humans. Chakotay tells Ka the only way back to his people is he'll have to earn his name by killing me. Over to Janeway and Razik, and they're tracking Ka and Chakotay. Razik here is quite amazed by the Federation tech, telling them it would have taken them weeks to track these two. So they have just this really weird level of tech. They have spaceships, but they don't have sensors that are any good.
Yeah. I feel like we've talked about this before. It probably was about the Kazon, but it just, it doesn't make sense. I think because a lot of this was really looked at as being ships in water.
Yeah.
And so pirates could have ships. They could steal ships. They could make ships.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make any sense that they would have the engineering abilities to
keep them going.
Repair a ship. Yeah, keep it going. Exactly.
Right. B'Elanna's got comms working, and they call Chakotay, ready to beam him away. But he tells them to hold and to get sickbay to prepare for a code white resuscitation. And Chakotay's plan is he's going to let the kid shoot him.
It's a very noble Star Trek plan.
Yes, it is. Ka asks why Chakotay is doing this, and he tells him it's his fault he doesn't have his name, and he can't leave him behind like this. Oh, that is very honorable Starfleet.
Absolutely.
The away team is getting close, but the Kazon want to go one way, and Tuvok's tricorder suggests another. But when they go that way, they're trapped in a force field. Razik watches, telling them their technology isn't always an ally. Sometimes it betrays you. Or the Vulcan made a mistake.
First of all, it's silly that they would all walk together and all walk into a trap. It's like, we know that the planet is a training ground, so there's traps everywhere, so that doesn't make any sense that we would just do that.
Send Tuvok first.
But this scene is another example of why I don't think the Kazon leader is very scary. He does something really strange, because it's the other guy who says, oh no, don't go that way. And then the leader says something like, oh, I apologize for what this guy is trying to do. And the way he said it was just so non-threatening and just wacky. Yeah. He's more of a clown to me than he is a scary villain.
But don't you think he was doing that to play to Janeway's sensibilities, to try and pretend like he was,
maybe.
I'm a good guy here.
Maybe. It just comes across so non-threatening or sincere. None of it seemed like what he was actually trying to do.
Yeah, I guess if you understood the Kazon more, they would look at that and go, why is he being so nice? There's something going on here. Right. So they maybe accept that at face value?
Maybe. It's a silly scene.
I think it was a scene trying to show that the Federation tech isn't always right. But these guys just tracking manually and trying to figure things out, that doesn't necessarily track as well either. Because how many of them get blown up when they go, oh, the proton ray was in the third rock, not the second, and then get zapped. Mm-hmm. Well, this delay means the Kazon arrive at the cave first. And Kar is holding a phaser on Chakotay. Kar tells Razik he only went along so he could get another chance to kill him. He then quotes Razik saying, "You've told me many times before, in battle, there are no second chances." Janeway and the away team have made it out the force field and arrive just as Kar, looking at Chakotay, says, "But you are not my enemy. He is." And then swings around with the phaser, shooting Razik, clearly killing him.
Good job.
Kar announces, "He is Jal Karden, Kazon Ogla." He lowers his phaser and walks facing Halise, saying, "You are now first mage. My life is yours," and dramatically putting his arms out, as Halise is still holding a phaser on him. Kar says, "Kill me if you wish, or let me live, and I will follow you into battle when you command." I kind of like how Halise here just sort of glowers at him and says, "Jal Karden, Kazon Ogla," and then lifts his phaser up as all the rest of his little motley crew repeat, "Kazon Ogla."
Well, yeah, because he was going to kill him. And then he was like, oh, wait, I am in charge now.
Wait, so now I'm the boss.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to let you live.
I like being in charge.
Yeah. Kar turns back to Chakotay, telling him, "The Federation does not belong here. If we meet again, I will not hesitate to kill you."
I bet you will.
Chakotay just replies, "I understand." Janeway calls to Voyager, and they beam away. Back on the ship, Chakotay is finishing his ritual and offers up a prayer, asking his father to continue watching over him as he has always done, but also to watch over a young boy called Karden, who has a difficult path to travel. And we close on a receding shot of Voyager continuing its journey. The end.
How did Chakotay have his little things at the end? The shuttle blew up.
He has multiple ones of them?
Mm-hmm. They must be replicated or something.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Because he didn't have them when he was walking around on the moon.
That's a very good observation there.
Yeah, that was something we maybe missed.
Although there is a memo that comes out of this, that ceremonies, religious or otherwise, will be conducted in the holodeck. We don't have enough shuttles to lose one a week.
Right.
I mean, why didn't he hold it in a holodeck?
Well, I don't know, because it's not like you can say you were, on a planet in nature. He wasn't. He was on a shuttle.
Out in space.
So why would the holodeck be any different?
And he wasn't alone because there was Kazon hanging around there.
Yeah, apparently. Well, I forgot to ask you if you have overanalysis, but I guess we already started. But do you have overanalysis?
I think my first point is I like this episode because I think it really demonstrated the gulf that could exist between the different races. You've talked about it before in the Deep Space Nine podcast. How do you reconcile wildly different cultural norms? These people are literally the opposite of Roddenberry's evolved humans.
I don't know. I don't remember us ever really having deep discussions about Kazon when we watched Voyager originally. Yeah. But when I look at it now, I do think they're meant to be early Klingon. And I think when they wrote it, they thought that was going to be scary. But it's just a bit silly.
It does remind me a lot of Klingons. I think Worf once talked about how in the old ways, the Klingons would literally train and fight to the death.
Right.
Until Kahless stopped it, because if you did that, you would lose valuable warriors.
Yeah. Duh.
The Kazon just don't seem to have figured this out. Because if you fight in a battle and don't win, but survive, you might learn something useful.
Right.
To a large extent, luck plays a factor in these things. So you might be losing great warriors, and the lucky one who's useless is the one who survives.
Yeah.
Next thing, sticking with the subject of the Kazon, I'm interested in this story about the Trabe. I got the sense that it was just they both evolved there, so it was just another race. Do you think they were aliens or?
No. I think they were the aristocrats, the ones with the money, the 1%. No, I think they were the same.
Yeah.
But we don't really know that here, but that's what I assumed, and it was the lower class revolting.
Maybe they deliberately kept the Kazon ignorant and unsophisticated.
But also maybe they were just barbarians, cave dwellers. We could look at it like maybe the Kazon were the indigenous people on that planet.
Yeah.
And they lost their territory, they lost their land, they lost their rights, and they managed to fight back, and they just took the spaceships and took whatever they had.
Yeah.
Now they maybe aren't quite ready for the world that they're in, but that's where they are.
Well, that would almost be worse, because that's like writing a 19th century colonial view of indigenous peoples being savages.
Right. This is why I wish I knew what the point was. What were they really trying to make the Kazon? Because you could interpret it in so many different ways, and most of the ways you interpret them are pretty negative. So I'd like to know what was the point.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked on Deep Space Nine about the Cardassians being the Nazis, and there are some parallels with other races with things that happened in history.
Yeah.
What's the parallel with the Kazon? Or is there no parallel? And they really weren't trying to make any points that we're trying to draw from them.
We're reading reading too much into it.
We are literally overanalyzing it.
That's the name of the section of the podcast.
That's the section we're in.
I mean, you could go very negative with the Kazon, or you could say they wanted low-rent Klingons who weren't that powerful, so couldn't really threaten Voyager.
I think we should look at it that way. We should look at them like the early days of the Klingons.
Yeah. Limited warp technology.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. I think that's a good, generous take of what they are. And my final overanalysis piece. I think we know why last week's episode had the one Voyager shot of it landing and no pictures of the city or anything else. They blew all the budget on this one.
Oh, on the space battles.
Yeah, those were big, long space battles.
Because other than that, there aren't any effects. We're just walking around Southern California.
And in one of the discount caves left over from Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
Actually, they probably shared a cave.
They probably did.
And that, I think, wraps up my overanalysis. There's really not much to analyze in this episode.
No, there really isn't. I don't have anything in overanalysis we haven't already covered.
Really?
No, but I will say one thing in Women in the Future, which is, are there any women, Kazon?
No.
They just hatch out of pods?
Yes, they're like the Jem'Hadar that way.
Yeah, we have not seen any.
Yeah.
Well, if I go to Janeway's Leadership Corner, not much to say here. There's not a lot of Janeway. We saw Chakotay trying to de-escalate, trying to get himself out of that situation, trying not to get into any kind of a battle.
Very Starfleet.
Yes, and he was certainly trying to show Nog a better way. And in the end, he did. He might still, with what he did, what he was willing to sacrifice, he might still have an impact on the Kazon.
Oh, that's a good point, yeah.
And is that a violation of the Prime Directive? Probably, but it's positive. So we think, well, that doesn't matter. That was a good thing.
Yeah, what does Carr take away from this?
Yeah.
Does it change the attitude of the Kazon? Is it a positive thing?
Yeah.
We don't need to be these awful people who are pirates and obsessed about which sect we're in and fighting everybody who comes through our space.
But the positive or negative isn't supposed to matter in the Prime Directive. You're just not supposed to interfere.
Yeah.
Chakotay could have avoided interfering by not beaming the Kazon to the ship, but it's also, do you just let him die, right? He was trying to be a good guy.
Well, he's already made a huge impact. Ka killed Razik,
Yeah.
the head of that Ogla sect, putting Halise into now the top role. Now, is this going to result in Halise going, this training to the death kind of thing, it's for the birds. I'm losing too many good people. So if you fail, I'll just make you do it again until you succeed and not death.
Right.
So all of a sudden you could have a change happening in the Kazon, all caused by Chakotay.
Yes, but we don't talk about that. So we will just leave the leadership corner.
Chakotay's after action report says nothing happened.
Didn't say anything to him, just sat quietly in the corner.
Respected his awful Kazon values.
Told him to take a bath. And
we have to mention it with the leadership. Janeway is the first on the planet with a phaser.
Yes, she had her Kirk moment in this episode.
Yeah.
So let's go to rating. Thumbs up, thumbs down, or neutral. What is your rating?
Okay. I think the reason I remember this episode is because at the time, it was a big deal having an actor crossover between Deep Space Nine, which I really liked, and Voyager. I also kind of liked the episode in a lot of ways of, I think, just this cultural divide between the Federation and the Kazon. And I liked this idea of this kid maybe learning something, and Chakotay actually kind of caring about him, which we saw at the end. So this might surprise you, but I give it a thumbs up. I did actually like the episode.
Well, my rating of this episode is too much Chakotay. And I didn't like it. I don't want to watch it again. I didn't get much from it. I thought Aron Eisenberg was okay in it, but he was sort of nog, and so that wasn't even really, that exciting. Right. And the Kazon they're a ridiculous villain that I don't find particularly interesting.
They're a pantomime villain.
Yeah. There wasn't enough Tuvok. There wasn't enough of the doctor. There was one little joke with the doctor when he was like, get this crap out of my sick bay. That was pretty funny. But other than that, I didn't get a lot from this episode. Yeah. So I don't know that it deserves a thumbs down, but I'm just going to say neutral.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't terrible. There just wasn't much to interest me.
There wasn't enough meat on it.
Yeah. And not enough of the characters I really like. And I like a lot of the characters.
Yeah.
But I just don't like Chakotay. And this was all Chakotay.
And this whole thing was Chakotay's fault.
Yeah. Maybe the only reason to not give it a thumbs down is that sort of link between Chakotay trying to honor his father and then having to be a father to the kid in this episode, even though he's not a kid. Yeah. He's like 30 years old. But in the episode, he's a kid. Yeah. In the episode, he's a kid.
Let that go. Exactly. Let that go.
So I like that circular thing I like.
I didn't actually take that into consideration.
Well, it's funny because I thought of it sort of based on something you said. So you were unconsciously considered it. Okay, that wraps up season 1, episode 2, I think.
Not exactly the most auspicious start to a new season.
No. Come back next week for episode 3. In the meantime, if you'd like to send us your own over-analysis of this or any episode, or if you just want to say something nice, you can email us at ReBingeIT@gmail.com. You can also hit us up on the socials at ReBingeIT. We are on Threads, Instagram, and the thing that used to be called Twitter, and we're also on YouTube. You can join the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Star Trek TTM podcasts.
Thanks for joining us on the ReBinge Star Trek Voyager podcast.
That's it for me.
And that's it from me.